This video is to show how to use a proportion to solve a word problem. So the word problem is 3 dozen cookies take 1/2 cup sugar to bake. How many cookies can be baked with 2 cups of sugar? Solve using a proportion. So the first thing I want to say is that there are many ways to solve this problem, and using a proportion is not maybe even the best, depending on who you are and what you like. But I'm using it as an example to show how a proportion can be solved. How a proportion can be used to solve a problem like this. So in order to use a proportion, we have to start by making a ratio. And my stylus doesn't seem to be working, so let me try that again. There we go. And when I do this, I like to think about what ratio I can use and then write what the ratio is in words before I start plugging any numbers in. And that helps both to organize myself and think about what I'm doing and all of that. So in the first sentence, 3 dozen cookies take 1/2 cup sugar to bake. There are 2 numbers. There's 3 and 1/2, and it's all about the same batch of cookies. And so as long as you're not going to make sweeter cookies or less sweet cookies, that ratio of either sugar to cookies or cookies to sugar should be consistent. And so that's the ratio I'm going to work with. I'm either going to do cookies to sugar or sugar to cookies. And I think I'm going to go cookies to sugar. The other issue is I could sort of look at 3 dozen as 3 times 12, 36 cookies, but I don't have to, and why make the numbers worse than they need to be? So the ratio that I'm actually going to work with is how many dozen cookies we can bake with how many cups of sugar. And so that's the ratio I will use. And the given information has that 3 dozen cookies take 1/2 cup of sugar. So the next thing to look at is, okay, I've got this ratio, and I will get an equivalent ratio so that I could set up a proportion if what I do is I multiply top and bottom of this given ratio by the same multiplier. So I can multiply top and bottom by 2 and get an equivalent ratio, and that would look like that would look like 6 dozen cookies. 3 times 2 is 6. And then let's see, what is 1/2 2 times? Oops. 1/2 2 times, well, 1/2 2 times, that's just 1. So for example, 6 dozen cookies take 1 cup of sugar. And actually, I could use this simpler ratio, hey, no more fraction, if I want to go on. But I'm going to show how we could do this directly from the given ratio. But my point is that I can multiply by whatever I want. I can take this 3 is to 1/2 and multiply top and bottom by anything I want, and I'll get an equivalent ratio. The ratio that I want has 2 cups of sugar in it. And so the first thing I got to do is look, does that 2 go on top or bottom? And since it's cups of sugar, it's going to have to go on the bottom, the same place that the 1/2 is. So I'm going to put that in right there. And what I'm looking for is, what number do I multiply times 1/2 to get 2? And so I started exploring it, and I say, all right, well, 1/2 times 1 is just 1/2. We just saw a second ago that 2 of these halves got us up to 1. 3 of those halves, let's see, 1/2, 1, that's 1.5, and 1 more half. It's really 4 halves. Gets you all the way up to 2. So, all right, I have my multiplier. And typically for me, that's the hardest part of a proportion problem. Yes, setting it up, and that takes some practice, but once you're kind of good at analyzing the words to make up your ratio, the hardest mathematical part is coming up with that multiplier. Now that I have it, all I have to do is figure out, well, what's 3 times 4? And 3 times 4 is 12. So I'm going to erase this scratch work so I can put my answer. I'm going to put my answer. How many cookies can be baked with 2 cups of sugar? Answer, 12 dozen.